I never really liked animals. Things like pet dogs, cats, and birds always seemed like messy and smelly nuisances. Not something I wanted as a pet, or ever wanted to be around for long periods of time. Which is why I considered myself lucky that whenever I visited a friend who had pets, they always seemed to avoid me. Huh, that's weird. Jack is usually very excited to see guests. My girlfriend Shelby said when I visited her house, her dog ran away and hid under the bed as soon as I stepped inside. Another strange instance is that whenever I got near my uncle's cage of guinea pigs, they'd scamper to the other side of the enclosure, squeaking in fear. "Maybe you just smell bad," my uncle would tease, waving the air by his nose. I went fishing with my grandfather. He'd be very unlucky with the catch, only to reel in a few bass as soon as I was dropped off the boat. I never got bit by anything, never got stung by a bee or harassed by the abundance of seagulls. Going down the beach, it was easy to see flocks of the noisy birds trying to snatch up people's lunch. I just assumed I was lucky when I went the whole day without a single feathered fiend coming within 10 meters from my towel. I didn't think much of these events at the time. It was only recently when something happened that made me put all the pieces together. There I stood, awestruck and petrified, nearly pissing myself, face to face with an enormous black bear. I was out on a camping trip with my Shelby and her family, and I had taken a short walk away from the campsite to take a smoke break in private, when the beast approached me curiously. My brain went haywire, trying to remember the proper defense against a black bear. Make myself look big? Or was that for brown bears? My lip quivered. I was certain I was going to die. But looking into those glossy, doll-like eyes, I saw just as much fear and panic as I carried, if not more. The bear was trembling, locking eyes with me, stunned as if I was death itself. Then, after a solid minute of this frozen stare-down, the bear quickly turned heel and ran without as much as a growl. I was flabbergasted. I looked behind me and all around, trying to see what had scared the creature. Nothing. I thought back to my interactions with animals over the years. It came to a peculiar and unexplainable conclusion. Every non-human creature seemed terrified of me. I put this theory of mine to the test by visiting a small farm with a petting zoo. It wasn't open, but after speaking with the owner and explaining my theory, he agreed to let me near the animals. Sure enough, all the swine in the barn began swarming to the other side, oinking and squeaking in desperation as they tried to get as far away from me as possible. I trudged closer, and my face loosened in confusion as the pigs grew more panicked. They were clambering over each other, almost forming a pile and cramming into the corner, forcing themselves to get further away as possible even if there was nowhere to go. "All right, that's enough," the farmer said angrily, grabbing my wrist and forcing me out. He shooed me off of his property, with fear wavering his voice. "I don't know what it is, but something dark is attached to you. Scaring the animals like that is a demonic omen. Get out and don't come back," he shouted. I couldn't blame him. It was certainly odd. I didn't believe in things like dark spirits or curses, but it's not like I could come up with a better answer for this oddity. Something about the farmer's superstitious vexation was very familiar to me. It seemed random and unrelated at the time, but someone had a similar reaction to my presence in the past. Me, my brother, and Shelby were big on the occult as teens. We would play with a Ouija board, go visit haunted antique shops, and try all sorts of trending rituals like Bloody Mary and the like. One day, we wanted to visit a local shop that held items related to spirituality and mystics, magic and witchcraft and things of that nature. As soon as we entered, the old woman working there seemed on edge. She had long gray braided hair, and she was adorned in all sorts of cultural relics and symbols I didn't recognize. She looked at me and my friends as we entered with a shocked and fearful expression. Her worried face morphed into one of anger, and she gestured toward us. "Get out," she hollered. My friends and I looked at each other confused. "I said, get out," the woman repeated, and we weren't willing to argue or question with this enraged lady, so we quickly scurried out. Looking back now, that lady was definitely staring straight at me. With all these pieces put together in my head, it was clear that something wasn't right. But why should I care? So what if animals ran away from me? So what if witches didn't let me into their shops? This curse, or whatever it is, hadn't harmed me or anyone else up to this point. I was perfectly content with never getting an answer, as it didn't seem to affect my life all that much. Until a few weeks ago, that is. Me and my girlfriend Shelby moved in together about half a year ago, sharing a one-bedroom studio apartment in the city. It took only a few days of living together for strange things to happen. We would often leave the apartment in the morning and find roadkill on the street. Not the most unusual thing in the world, but what was unusual is that the roadkill seemed more frequent the closer you got to our apartment. One day, an entire deer was laying dead mere meters from the front door. It only got worse as time went on. What was once only 1 or 2 dead squirrels or raccoons was now at least a dozen small eviscerated animal corpses strewn about our block every day. The strangeness didn't end there. One time I woke up in the middle of the night to find Shelby wasn't in our bed, and I discovered her sprawled out on the sofa in the living room. When I asked her what she was doing out there, she said she didn't remember, but suggested that it could be because I smelled like a wet dog. That caught me by surprise. That was something she had said before, but I never thought she minded it. I felt butterflies in my stomach remembering the first night we confessed our feelings to each other, only young teens at the time. I don't remember who confessed first. All I remember is that we ended up in my bed, holding each other close. In a dreamlike bliss, holding the girl I had loved for so long, she smiled at me and teased, "Your bed smells like wet dog." I was snapped back to the present. Was it a real problem? I showered regularly, wore deodorant, and washed our sheets recently. I didn't smell anything off. She insisted, however, that the smell was thick and overpowering, and that I probably couldn't smell it because I was used to it. I asked her if I always smelled like that, and to my shock and dismay, she said yes. To think that Shelby had simply endured the fact that I stunk like an animal was humiliating, but also made me appreciate that she stayed with me for so long anyway. I took on an unhealthy fixation to rid myself of this stink. I tried on all sorts of pungent colognes, much to the mockery and bemusement of Shelby. "Now you just smell like a wet dog in a log cabin," she said after I applied a scent labeled Dry Woods. I then took extra time in the shower. Various different soaps and shampoos lining the shelves as I scrubbed away desperately at my skin, determined to purge myself of this stench, but it was fruitless. Every night, no matter what, Shelby would wake up some time before me with the same message. Wet dog. After a few weeks, I woke up to find her making breakfast, to which she said something very worrying. "You still smell like a wet dog. If anything, it's getting worse." Something was up. This wasn't normal. Was it my breath? No, she smelled my breath and said it was normal. Her nose? No. We met up with other people and they agreed. I had a strange new smell about me. They said it wasn't as pungent during the day, and even went away for a bit after I showered. But every night without fail, I'd wake up to my girlfriend saying that the smell had returned. I didn't sweat at night. We had a fan in our room. What could possibly be causing this? I gave up. Shelby just said she would deal with the smell, and though she seemed uncomfortable with it at first, she eventually slept soundly, not complaining about the smell at all. She had gotten used to it, and I tried not to think much about it after that, until more odd little things started happening around the apartment. I would wake up to find small pieces of fur on our bed, small scratches near the door, and even I began to smell the faint stench of an animal. Was there something living in our apartment? Is that what was causing the smell? We set up cameras in our bedroom and living room, hoping to catch whatever critter was snooping around. When we woke up, all the cameras were missing. There wasn't a shred of evidence for any kind of break-in or burrow. Nothing was missing, broken, or stolen. We found it hard to believe that someone or something was sneaking around in our house just to leave a few strands of fur and scratch marks and then leave. We even developed a mild distrust for each other. I asked her if she had misplaced or taken down our cameras, and she accused me of the same thing. This tension between us was building. It was hard to fully grasp how strange the situation was. These strange occurrences just sort of happened in the background, progressively building in intensity to an event that neither of us could have seen coming. Then, the weirdest thing happened. Weirdest and most frightening. I woke up at around 3 a.m. My mouth was arid and my eyelids heavy. Footsteps undeniably sounded from the living room. "Shelb?" I whispered. I reached out to touch her, rocking her blanket-covered back gently. "Shelb, there's someone here." My veins crystallized, stinging pockets of ice. My heartbeat drummed in my head. Footsteps were sounding closer and closer. I rolled over to face the doorway, wide open, revealing a black abyss. I studied the doorway for a moment, my eyes transfixed on the silhouette emerging from the darkness. Desperately, I rocked Shelby again. "Shelby!" I shouted. The figure in the doorway flinched. "Jesus, what is it?" Shelby responded. She flicked on the light from the door. It was her. She was standing in the doorway. She was the one making the footsteps. My stomach churned. If Shelby was at the door, then who was in my bed? I turned to the lump under the blankets, an undeniable weight on the bed. Uncovering the blanket, I nearly puked at what I saw. A wolf, dead, mauled. Its fetid, half-eaten cadaver left dark stains in the sheets and fumigated the room with a heavy aroma of rot. I jumped back and toppled out of bed. Shelby yelled and covered her mouth. "What the fuck?" I shouted. Looking closely at the wolf, it was brutally killed. Claw and scratch marks covered its hide. Its entire bottom half was torn off. Intestines spilled out of the bottom like spaghetti. I very well may have stayed there staring at the corpse for hours if Shelby hadn't snapped me back into reality, urging us both to leave the apartment and report the incident to the police. We told her parents what happened, and they offered to let us stay in their house until the apartment was searched and the cleaning company completely scrubbed the place. "I'm not going back there, Michael. That was so freaky," Shelby insisted as we settled ourselves into her parents' guest room. Obviously, she was right. Between the countless dead animals in the area outside, the smell, and the wolf in my bed, it was clear that the environment was unsafe. I decided that once the cleaning company had cleared out the mess, I would return with my brother to move out all of our belongings as Shelby didn't feel safe joining me. Her parents were more than happy to let us stay for a while longer until we found a new apartment. They had a Ring camera and lived about 15 minutes away, so I felt she was safe from whatever animal killer that was stalking our apartment. It was incredibly strange, because nobody else in the apartment complex reported any dead animals in their rooms, nor as pungent as a dog smell that our room had. The next day, the cleaning company arrived and removed the bed, and I decided to bring my brother Isaac to the apartment to remove what belongings we could. "What a mess," Isaac grimaced as he stepped out of the car, observing a squirrel that had been splattered and stretched across the pavement. It took us the whole afternoon, putting things into boxes and stuffing them in the car. The entire time I felt uneasy. I couldn't help but peek around the corners and check my back constantly. The sun had set by the time me and him had moved everything. He leaned up against the car and yawned. Do you mind if I lay down? We came here right after my hiking trip. I'm pooped. Isaac moaned, stretching his back. I let him rest in the car as I went back up to the apartment to grab one last thing. As soon as I entered our apartment room and shut the door behind me, I felt strangely lightheaded. The overpowering scent of wet dog suddenly flooded my nostrils, and my head spun. Next thing I knew, I collapsed on the floor and slipped unconscious. When I woke, my face felt rough and itchy against the carpet. My eyes watered and my muscles were sore. I groaned, clutching my pounding head. My heart was drumming with fear when I checked my phone. Over 20 missed calls from Shelby's parents. I cursed under my breath repeatedly, scrambling to my feet. Out the window was complete darkness. Night had only just set in when I passed out. Now it was nearly 3 a.m. I desperately called back Shelby's parents while rushing out of the apartment. The smell of dog was now foul and more pervasive than ever. I was so panicked that I didn't even notice the apartment door was wide open.
Michael, where are you? This is really bad.
Shelby's mom cried over the phone. I'm sorry, I passed out. What is it? I questioned, sprinting down the stairs.
It's Shelby, she's gone. The Ring camera was torn out. All the doors are open. Oh God, Michael, she's gone.
Her mother finished, audibly horrified. My insides tied themselves into knots. My face contorted from sheer despair. What? No, I'm coming, just shit. I babbled incoherently, not even noticing as I dropped my phone. I burst out of the apartment and rushed to the car. To my shock, the door was wide open. A trail of blood streaked across the seat where Isaac was resting. What? I spat in a mixture of fear, confusion, and worry. I whipped my head around the shadowy streets. How could I have let this happen? My eyes followed the streak of blood that trailed from the car and into the street. There, beyond the streetlights, caked in darkness, was an animal. There was no better way to describe the towering yellow-eyed beast that stood in the darkness. An animal. It had deep, ocean-black fur and sharp yellow teeth glimmering with a caramel-esque sheen. It stood upright like a person, reaching a towering 8 feet tall. Draped over its massive frame was a long black coat. Another black coat wrapped around its waist. It stared directly at me with its hungry, carnivorous eyes. I unconsciously wobbled back and fell on my ass as the large beast started walking toward me. Words could not describe the feeling of visceral discomfort that washed over me. It was the first time in my life that an animal, a non-human creature, seemed to approach me without fear. As it shambled toward me, all I could bring myself to do was quake in terror. At that moment, as the creature came so close to touching my face with its breath, I couldn't help but feel a feeling of familiarity. The smell, the unmistakable stench of a wild and rabid dog, the same odor that permeated my person and bedroom for all that time. Had this thing been stalking me? For how long? I couldn't help but suspect that the beast had something to do with my curse. My proclivity to frighten animals. My mind raced. Surely this monster placed a hex on me. It wanted all other animals to leave me be, so it could hunt me all for itself. Just as I was certain the beast would tear me limb from limb, staring deep into my eyes with a haunting, animalistic glare. Its eyes slowly softened. The look it gave me was no longer one of hunger, but a strange compassion, like one I would see my girlfriend's dog give her. I flinched as the beast licked my face, gave a high-pitched whine, then stood up. It walked right past me and back into the darkness, leaving me laying on the floor dumbfounded. I stayed there, on the floor, petrified, before my sense of urgency re-entered my mind, and I rose to my feet. I looked where the monster had emerged, the trail of blood I could only assume was my brother's, snaking off into the darkness. I cautiously approached the shadows, and couldn't bring myself to look at what I spotted beyond the light. It was my brother, gutted, torn, and eaten, blood drying on the grass. His glossy gray eyes were fixed toward the sky. I was too late. He was long dead. I collapsed to my knees. I clutched my hands to my face. All I could do was force the racing thoughts through my head out. If I had thought about the reality of what had happened for even a second, I would surely turn crumple into nothing. I was lucky, in a sense, that something distracted me at that moment. My hands were sticky. I had been in the darkness and panicked the whole time. I hadn't thought to examine myself. I looked down at my hands in horror. My clothes were completely stained with blood. My hands and my arms caked in the red splotchy splatters from red viscera. The rest of the night was a blur. The police showed up and shoved me in a car. I was taken to the station and questioned, my whole world falling apart. From what I could gather, my girlfriend Shelby is still missing. They suspect me of murdering my brother, as the blood I was covered in was his. I told them I was passed out at my apartment. I told them about the monster, and I could tell they thought I was insane. None of it made any sense. I was beginning to think to myself that I had lost my mind. There was no way that the beast was real, but it was even harder to believe that I had anything to do with my brother's death or my girlfriend's disappearance. I thought my life was over, that I would go to jail, that I would never see Shelby again. But this morning, something unexplainable happened. I'm back in my apartment. I was certain I fell asleep in a holding cell at the sheriff's office, but here I am, back at the empty apartment. I don't know how I got here. I just know two things for certain. It smells like a dog in here. And there's an animal out there that caused all of this. The one and only animal that I fear more than it fears me. Hey, you've made it past the narration. Welcome. Or welcome back if this is your first video of mine. I love a good werewolf story. The main character has to be a werewolf, right? Either that or his girlfriend is one. I expected his brother to be a werewolf as well, but he died as a human. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you Real Tension for 2508 for letting me narrate this story. They will be linked below. I think this was my longest recording so far, and I think it was a really fun one. I already have a few longer stories to narrate in the lineup, so if you don't want to miss out on those, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a like if you liked this one, dislike it if you didn't. The secret chat message of the day will be an onion. I don't know, all this recording and editing is making me hungry. Also, links as always will be in the description. Join the Discord if you want to hang out, be a part of the watch parties, or maybe even kick my ass at Scrabble. Thanks for watching. Bye bye!